Okay.
Hello, I'm Levi Schneidewind. I'm the lead developer at Underbite Games. We're a local studio.
I'm Brett Pennings. I'm the development and design half of Bowlcut Studios. We're working on a title called Mage Quit.
I'm Bex Saltsman. I run Finji, which is a small independent development and sort of micro-publishing studio here in Grand Rapids. And yeah, we launched Night in the Woods over like this last year on a bunch of consoles and stuff. We're building Overland internally. We're also publishing Tunic and a bunch of unannounced stuff that's sort of coming down the pipe right now.
So yeah, basically, as you guys know, we're going to be talking about our experience at PAX South. So Levi is going to kind of talk about like the prep behind it and kind of being there, what that's like, and then follow up. I'm going to be talking about more smaller cons, like lessons learned there, why even promote at conventions, things like that. And then Becca's going to end up with talking about more about the costs associated with promoting at PAX and what it looks like as your studio gets bigger and when you want to have the bigger space to promote it at a con. So
yeah, so kind of kick things off, PAX is something that you kind of don't want to jump into like any convention and kind of just,
Do you have slides?
I do not.
Okay,
no.
it's fine.
Just some talking points.
Okay.
So you want to do like a little bit of planning kind of before that and stuff like that. And so even something like making like an asset list of like what are the things that I need to take to the show and stuff like that. So like computers, TVs, anything that you want to set up your booth and stuff like that. And then there's the whole step of like logistics and actually figuring out like how do I get this stuff to the show. So we've done a couple of things. Sometimes we ship things like FedEx, anything that we can take on a plane with us. We try to jam it in and stuff like that. But that's definitely something that you kind of want to plan out ahead of time. And so so PAX takes place over a couple days. Typically you get like 2 days to set up depending on how early you get to the show. And so as much extra time as you can give yourself, you'll want to use that time because there's always going to be some sort of issue that happens, be it missing luggage. If you've got like a build that you're showing off, like there's probably going to be like bugs in it, like if you kind of did too many last minute changes and stuff like that. So that's definitely another thing to keep in mind is if you do have a build of a game that you're showing off, you probably don't want to make any changes to it that are not just bug fixing. Like I'm going to say at least 2 weeks ahead of time, because we've done that on a couple occasions where you want to obviously get in as much as you can, to show it at a show. And so a lot of times though that'll lead to last minute bugs. So we've already had situations where like someone's setting up the booth and somebody else has like a laptop out like trying to fix some of the last minute issues that kind of came up. And then, so the show, again, takes place over a couple days. And so if you're not kind of used to spending a lot of time on your feet, it's actually, like, very exhausting to kind of, stand that long. And so you want to make sure that you kind of give yourself some time to, like, get away from the booth and, like, sit down. So this is where, like, having a team definitely comes in handy and actually setting up kind of, like, shifts of, like, who's going to be at the booth, who can go kind of, like, take a break and stuff like that. And then kind of during that time, like eating healthy, I think, it's something to kind of think about. You don't want to just kind of like have snacks and like, I guess, eat at your booth the whole time. So if you can get away and eat, like a salad, that's awesome. Like definitely do that. And then you'll meet a lot of people at PAX naturally. You'll get a lot of business cards and stuff like that. And you'll probably be tempted to kind of like get a hold of these people as soon as possible, which is not always a good idea because like everybody else also is attempting to get a hold of these people as soon as possible. So it's kind of nice just to make a list of, like when you get back, make a list of all the people you do want to contact and stuff like that. And actually kind of give them like a couple days or like a week before you actually like email them just so like they can kind of like recuperate from the show and kind of, get spun back up kind of into life and stuff like that. And then sort of the final thing I'll say is like PAX is definitely one of the big events, but there's also many small conventions to go to and stuff that are a lot cheaper, especially if they're local and stuff like that. So if you do plan on exhibiting some sort of like game, definitely try to check out these small shows. Use it as a chance to like practice like booth setup. Like what do we actually need? Like give it a shot. Go look at other people's booths. See what kind of setup that you actually like. Take pictures. Like ask people about it and stuff like that. And each time you do it, you'll kind of get a little bit better at it and stuff like that. And so that's kind of the key.
All right. Garrett, can you put my slide up? Cool. Okay. Oh.
That's me.
Yeah, she took over your computer. Oh yeah, there we go. The one on the right.
Promotion.
Wait. That didn't make any sense. Okay. Can you, yeah, do. Cool, yeah, maybe. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to talk about promoting at smaller cons, or I guess just cons in general. Kind of already told you who I was. Why even bother promoting at cons? Why don't you just make a game that's so good it sells itself? How to design a booth, and then how to vet a convention, and then also I'm going to go through each example of the cons that I've been to over the past year. So yeah, I kind of already went over this, but you can go to the next slide. Huh?
I actually broke everything on the screen.
All right. Okay, so these are the cons I've been to in the past year. I'll be covering them in more detail later, but there's 8 of them. So, next. Okay, so why even go to conventions? Why don't you just make your game so good that you don't even need to promote it? It promotes itself. So there's a few reasons. The most obvious reason that people would think of to go to a convention would be to try to make money by selling their game. Unfortunately, going to conventions doesn't usually translate to sales, at least not immediately. So one way to try to do that is by collecting emails. I've read online that collecting emails usually translates to roughly 30%. Seems kind of high to me, but 30% of emails collected will translate into a sale of a game. You can also try to get money at the con by selling merchandise, so either t-shirts, buttons, whatever, or you can sell digital copies of your game. Yeah, these aren't for sale, also not cheap. Improving your game is another thing. Basically, you can watch people play and see what they get hung up on. Also pay attention to the things that you're explaining and over-explaining about your game. Try to not explain anything when someone comes up and plays your game, because typically later on when someone buys your game and plays it, you're not going to be there to tell them how to play it. So just take note of that. That's a good thing for conventions. You basically have a never-ending supply of tissue testers, which are people that play for the first time. Also, improving your booth. This point kind of assumes that going to conventions is important, but it is, and you get, as Levi said, you get a better booth each time you go because you can iterate on it. Also, you can use conventions to record crowd reactions. So if you want to make a time-lapse video of people's reactions to your game or traffic or whatever, or if you want to get specific reactions to the best parts of your game, you can put those into trailers and stuff like that. But the most important reason to go to conventions is connections. I'm going to touch on that later. So next one. Okay, so designing your booth. Basically, choose the things that I just talked about. Pick one or two, and then base your booth around that. So if your goal is to collect email addresses, make sure you have a good way to do that. If you're selling merch, have a sign that says you're selling merch. Otherwise, people aren't going to know. Yeah. So and then so basically, you just decide on a call to action, and then design your booth around that. People need to know what they're looking at. I don't know. It's pretty self-explanatory. Signage is important, so make sure people know what game they're playing and also know what company made the game. This is also important when you're designing your game. Make sure that if someone walks by, they understand within 3 seconds what's happening on the screen, or they'll just keep walking. Gimmicks. I don't really have much to say about this one, but some people come up with a weird, unique thing in their booth that will attract attention. For me, it was kind of, we have stadium seating for our booth. I have a picture of that later, which is kind of interesting, so people kind of watch that. Also, we were going to make like Arduino integration for the game, and then have like beards on rollers that would correlate with the score. But I didn't have enough time to do that for PAX South, so maybe for PAX East we'll do it. And then make sure you make a convention-specific build of your game. especially for a single-player game, you don't want to have to be kicking people off of your machines because they're sitting there for too long. So if you have a way for it to say, okay, good, you're done playing, go on. This is also especially important for non-gaming cons because you're not always going to be at your booth, especially for an anime con that has a game room that's open 24/7. Or I guess 24/3 because usually they're 3-day conventions. Okay, and then also business cards are important. We made the mistake early on of just putting our personal business cards out, and nobody really wants your personal business card at an anime convention because they just want to play your game and leave. So we probably wasted a lot of money on those. But yeah, it's good to also have a game card, game cards that you're giving out. Usually the smaller the better because they won't just throw them away because they're inconvenient. And make sure when you have those that they're in an accessible place on your booth so people will actually grab them and don't feel like they're getting in the way of somebody else. All right, next one. Okay, so since I'm talking about smaller conventions, how do you know which ones are actually worth going to? There's a few metrics that you can measure this by. Is it an anime/Comic-Con or is it a gaming convention? So I guess you'll have different purposes for these. Gaming conventions are a lot more for connections, so size is not terribly important. So like, for example, GDC only has 3,000 or 4,000 people there, but there's a lot of like industry professionals there, so you can make some good connections there because they're not being flocked by people as much. And then convention size, obviously typically the bigger the convention, the better. Make sure when you look this up that you are aware that most of the time cons like to tell you their turnstile attendance and not their actual ticket sales. So turnstile attendance meaning people that attend for 3 days count as 3 people because they walk through the gates 3 times. Cost to attend, typically anime conventions, if you're promoting at them, are free. If they are not, there better be a good reason why. But gaming conventions, typically they charge you money because that's the whole point of the convention. And then also time commitment is an important thing to look at. Figure out what the hours are. Is the gaming room open the whole time? Is it open from 10 to 10? Because that's also a long time to stay on there. Typically with gaming conventions, the range is 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. That's pretty standard. So it's a nice 8-hour span. Still exhausting, but not as bad as 10 to 10. And then also booth location. This is a really hard one to gauge because it's kind of rude to ask the person you're corresponding with at the con if they're putting you in a bad spot. Like, hey, are you going to put me in a room with a bunch of other devs and it's going to be kind of on the side? Is your game room the furthest thing away from the rest of the convention? Questions like that are kind of hard to ask, and I don't know if you can expect an honest response back. So I'm just going to tell you which ones are bad. Okay, next one. Okay, so this is the first one that I went to was JFAX. That picture on the top was our JFAX setup. They gave us a whole corner, which I totally didn't need. Nice thing about Grand Rapids is if you live here, you don't need a hotel. So that part's free. It's a Comic-Con. Both of those are Comic-Cons. I heard that they have 20K plus attendance at both of these, but I did not see that volume of people at all. It's free because it's an anime con and you are providing them with free entertainment and they are providing you with free publicity, I guess. JFAX has a company called Tokyo Attack do the game room, which means it's open 24 hours. Which means you're not going to be at your booth the whole time, obviously, especially if you're running the table by yourself, which is what I did. So a word of advice on that is use like wired controllers for your game if it's a controller game.
So it's your equipment.
Yeah, because it's your equipment. Yeah, exactly. I actually had wireless controllers at this one, and I left them all on the table overnight, both nights. They didn't get stolen, so that was good. The Tokyo people, or Tokyo Attack people, they said that they would watch them for me, so it ended up being okay. The Grand Rapids Comic-Con, they actually closed that one down, so that was kind of nice. And I actually brought my brother along to that one, so we kind of took shifts. It's important to walk away from your booth every once in a while because otherwise you dream about your game at night and it's not good. Not that I did it. Okay, so the good thing about these two cons, they actually put me in the same room both times, which the second time I was not happy about because, it's in the gaming room, which is great because everyone that's going there to play games will see your game. The bad part is the gaming room is the furthest thing away from the rest of the con, and I had friends that were coming to like support me specifically, and they were like, we can't find the gaming room. And I'm like, well, if they can't even find it and they're coming here just for this reason, it's not in a good spot. So what we learned from that one was that conventions are fun and nerds are the best. Because that was my first one. Okay, GDEX. This one is in Columbus, Ohio. This is an actual gaming convention. It's not an anime con, which is an important distinction. When I saw the size of the attendance, I was a little worried. Like, okay, so Comic-Con, Grand Rapids, or JFAX was 20K plus, and this one's only like 3,000 or 4,000. Why am I paying like $250 to show my game here? Well, it turns out people that come to gaming conventions are actually there to play games and not just weeb out or whatever. So yeah, it's $400 for a 10x10 booth, and then the cost of a 3+ nights in a hotel. As I mentioned earlier, it's a gaming con, so the typical hours for those for the general public are 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Pretty much all locations are good because that's what it's for people to come and play your games. And this con, as I mentioned earlier, is great for connections because it is so small, and so people aren't flocking around the important people as much. And also they give out awards at GDEX, which is cool. And Mage Quit got Best in Show at that one, so it's the only award we've won so far. So I learned a lot of things at this one. I didn't bring my brother along, and it was exhausting. So doing conventions by yourself is exhausting, so don't do it. Also, TVs have a nub on the back of them for changing the volume, so if you don't bring your remote control, you can still turn the volume on your TV up. So my game was pretty much silent all weekend, and then I found the nub at the end of the convention. Also, no one wants to scan your QR codes, so stop posting them. I spent a week making a tournament app so that people could join a tournament using a QR code that would text a number, and I spent a week on it. And I stayed up the night before till like 1:30 in the morning finishing it, and only one person scanned my QR code. So don't do that. Also, yeah, this is along the same line. Sleep is more important than that feature you are trying to finish. Yeah, so don't do what I did. Next one. Okay, Youmacon. Youmacon is great. Go to Youmacon. It's in Detroit, Michigan. It's a Comic-Con. 30K plus attendance. This one's free, even though it's pretty big. And last year they actually paid for the devs to stay in the hotel, which was really cool, but not normal. And it was a 24-hour game room because Tokyo Attack was running that one too. But the indies were actually out in front of the game room, so they didn't have anyone watching the stuff at night. But I had forewarning on this, so we got a bunch of security locks and locked everything down so that we could actually run the game overnight. And all the other indies put their stuff away overnight, so it was nice to be the only game that was out. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, okay. So they as I said, they put us in front of the entrance to the game room. So anyone that wanted to play games had to walk past our game, which was amazing. So yeah, things we learned there. So yeah, I'm definitely going back there this year. But things we learned there. Comic-Cons actually can be really great for promoting your game if the location's good. Also, be careful how you pack your TV into your car, especially if you borrowed it from this company here. So that picture right there is what happened to. Actually, it's right there. To that TV. Also, don't rely on people's handwriting if you're collecting email addresses. We had a clipboard for email sign up, and we couldn't use half of the emails because we couldn't read them. Also, other indies are nice. Talk to them; they want to help you. I met a guy from Fantasy Strike named Richard, and he gave me the contact information for someone at PAX for us to go to PAX South. If I hadn't met him, I wouldn't have gone to PAX South at all. So next slide. Okay. So speaking of waste of time cons, we went to Anime Nebraska and Holiday Matsuri. Those are in Omaha, Nebraska, and Orlando, Florida, respectively. Long drive for cons that were probably about as useful as like Grand Rapids Comic-Con and JFAX. Yeah, both Comic-Cons, both about that much attendance. Free. So we happened to meet the guys that run the game room at Grand Rapids Comic-Con, and they go to a bunch of different cons and set up the game room. So they were like, hey, we like your game. You guys can just like Trojan horse into a bunch of cons with us. So that's why we went to these two. But so basically, they paid for our hotel, which was nice, but it was like it was a weekend commitment, and we had to drive. So that part of it wasn't necessarily worth it. But yeah, we set up in the game room. Visibility was good, but the game rooms weren't that busy. So yeah, this is an example where paying attention to Comic-Con attendance is really important. If it's somewhere around 10K, between 10K and 20K, it's probably not worth going to if you're hoping to promote your game there, but it's still good practice. And then, so what we learned here, sometimes Comic-Con nerds are more likely to play your game if you're not standing next to it. We realized at Holiday Missouri that if we left our booth, people would come play our game more than if we stood next to it. So that's another reason why it's important to have a convention build your game that will run itself. Also, there is such a thing as traveling too far for a convention. All right, next one. Okay, OhioCon. This one's also in Columbus, Ohio. It's in actually the same building as GDEX. And I was there 2 weekends ago? Yeah, 2 weekends ago. This is a Comic-Con. It's comparable to YomaCon, except they charged us $250. They didn't tell us till 3 weeks beforehand if we got accepted, so we bought really expensive hotels. 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. hours, and they put us all in our own room with very minimal advertisement. So the amount of people that came through were comparable to like JFAX, and we paid $250 for it. So I would say unless they change that for next year, it wasn't really worth doing. But yeah, as I said, lessons learned. Attendance doesn't matter if the location in the convention is terrible. And just because the convention charges you money to showcase doesn't mean it's worth it. All right, next one. So, PAX South. This one's in San Antonio, Texas. It's a gaming con. I think it's roughly 50,000 attendance. Yeah. For a 10x10 booth, it's $1,350, but the hotels there are relatively cheap. We got a Red Roof Inn for about $110 a night. Typical gaming con hours, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. If you're lucky, you get a corner booth if you're doing a 10x10, but you pretty much will have visibility wherever you are, so that's great. So pictured here is our booth setup, and then one of the busier days. Got a picture of the crowd we had. Yeah, and then Finji's there in the background. And so PAX South, the big thing there is connections. My brother and I went because we were trying to find a publisher. Plus PAX is cool. So lessons learned there is don't be shy, because everyone in the industry is typically very, very friendly and they want to help you. Also talk to important people early Saturday because they will fly home. There was a guy that did like betting for the Switch or whatever, and I was going to talk to him Saturday. I'm like, I'll talk to him tomorrow. It'll be fine. And he left early. Yep. Same thing with the people from Devolver, who would actually take a look at the game and be like, okay. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So talk to the important people early Saturday. That's a good lesson learned. Somebody suggested this to me, and everyone around him agreed. So I haven't actually tried it yet, but change your socks halfway through the day. Is that? Have you tried that?
No, but Chris Dwyer told you that. That's his thing.
Is that his? Okay, maybe
Yeah.
that was him. That's funny.
That's right. No, you met Chris.
And then the most important thing I learned was eat solid food. I mean, I knew that, but I just ignored it. So yeah, I ate 3 protein bars for lunch Saturday, and I had it's probably too much information. I had the worst gas the whole day. It was so bad. It was so bad. And then I think that's my whole presentation. So Becca's going to talk about more costs associated with running a larger booth.
Okay,
So, let me see if I can.
that's a problem. I'm just
swap over.
popping it up.
What, do you have to change your socks halfway through the convention? Do weird things happen to your feet?
No, it's just refreshing, I guess. I don't, because my feet don't hurt, but a lot of people swear by changing their socks.
I haven't tried it yet, so I don't.
Yeah, it has water moisture on your
Yeah.
feet, and it keeps your feet drier.
Mhm.
Also, just having a fresh pair of socks, like dirt and stuff. Military, we do it all the time for hikes and everything.
Yeah, for marathons, I would do the same thing. I change my socks halfway through, but yeah.
You actually stop or you keep running while
Oh, I stopped. Marathons are a long haul. You just stop, sit your butt down, change your socks, and start running again. Okay, so my name is Bex Saltsman. Again, it's been a while since I introduced myself. I run Finji. That's our web address, and I'm on the Twitters as Bex Saltsman. I always sort of use a picture of me and my kids, or one of my kids, sort of as an introduction, because it's not, you don't run into a bunch of women in games, and you definitely don't run into a bunch of moms in games, so it's always like a subtle reminder that we exist. So apologies, we're here. I run Finji with my husband, Adam Saltsman. This is just sort of our thing. Adam kind of takes over development, so he's running the Overland team and is the lead designer on that. His background's in programming. We both went to University of Michigan and both grew up in Michigan. A lot of people are like, why in the hell are you here after living in Austin for like 13 years? We grew up, I grew up in Fowlerville, Michigan, and Adam's from Clinton, just west of Ann Arbor. And then, we both went to U of M. And then went to Austin right afterwards, and then have come back because this is where Adam's parents retired. So we're raising our kids here. It's also a heck of a lot cheaper than Austin. That's actually Adam on Train Jam.
Oh, okay.
Just a heads up. That's Adam freaking out in the mountains on Train Jam last year. That's so Adam. Okay, just some context. I introduced my games earlier, but sometimes people need to see visuals. So the top one is Overland. It's sort of our turn-based survival strategy game that we've been working on for the last 4 years. One of our publishing projects is Tunic. That's like Zelda Fox, used to be called Secret Legend. It's really, really amazing. People are like, oh yeah, Zelda Fox game. Also called Tunic. Back in the day, if you ever came across Canavalt, that's my husband. He made that back in 2009. It's now part of the electronic game stuff, the Museum of Modern Art in New York City, and sort of the first endless runner. And then underneath that's Night in the Woods. It's made by Alex, Scott, and Bethany, plus a whole bunch of us who have overdid the project. That came out last year. It was up for a bunch of awards at the IGF Awards, GDC Awards, DICE Awards, a lot of awards, which is super humbling and flattering to be included on lists with Super Mario Odyssey and Zelda. That's sort of what we do. In the industry, we're kind of called triple indie. We're bigger than indie, which is what we kind of used to be, but now we have people. I think that's what makes you triple indie, is you have more than just
budgets.
I wouldn't exactly say we have budgets, but we have some more income. So with conventions, you're just gonna get a couple of really nice setup photos of me. Do we have to go? These are just stacks of my trash for a convention. I have a lot of crap for conventions, and I ship a lot of this. Actually, all of that crap I shipped from Grand Rapids. Those are my 7 televisions stacked in a Hyatt next door to the San Antonio Convention Center, which I drove down from Austin, Texas. So do we have to go? Yes. This is my opinion. Usually that's the first day after setup of a convention. Just, oh, God. So yay, high fives, you guys. We're going to convention. So that picture to this one is where my attitude adjustment has to switch over, because conventions are awesome, and it's sort of your opportunity to talk to the people who might play your game, and more importantly, create a reputation in the industry of who you are as a designer, as a person, as a company. So yeah, high fives. We are positive and happy and kind and honest, and that's how we run the Finji booth. That's not an act, that's just, yes, we're here, we might as well make the most of it, and people are nice, so let's talk to people. So this is our PAX South booth in 2017. This is actually just a little 10 by 10, and I'm technically running 4 stations in it. You just can't see my other Overland station. So yeah, we had 2 seated Night in the Woods stations, and then a table, and we had 2 camping chairs. We just didn't have them set up yet for Overland, which at that point you couldn't play with controller. It took Adam a while to understand that mouse and keyboard is not a good idea for a convention. And I finally won last summer, thank God, because it was horrible. But I want you to just sort of pay attention to, in a lot of ways, the kind of junk in the background. A lot of my booths look the same, and that's because we reuse everything. So we have this big old Night in the Woods banner. We have these little tiny overland banners. We have TV toppers. We have these little ottomans. This is my PAX South 2018 booth. So I inherited a 10 by 20. Stuff sort of happens to me. So this is a 10 by 20 and this is a 10 by 20. Technically I wasn't supposed to have a 10 by 20. This was supposed to be somebody else, but PAX asked for a favor. And I was happy to oblige. So that is the same Night in the Woods banner that I've been carting around for a long time. I also have now an overland version and a tunic version. The Night in the Woods banner is like 10 feet wide. Overland and tunic are about 9 feet. And then those little ones are like the 22 inches or whatever, the little Finji ones. People look at this and they're like, wow, that's amazing. And I'm going to show you the budget of kind of what 2017 looked like and what it looks like now. And it's going to sort of go through how much everything in this booth costs, because it's not what you think at all. So PAX South 2017. So I had those four stations. I had 2 overland, 2 Night in the Woods, and I ran that weekend with 2 people. The booth fee last year was $1,300. It's $1,350. I was wondering what it was.
Okay.
I meant to look it up.
I was like, you got $50 off?
No. 2017 it was $1,300, and that came with 3 badges. I don't know how many yours came with.
Yeah, 3.
Okay. So for 4 stations, so 4 TVs, 4 computers, you're going to need the 20 amp electricity. It's going to run you last year $166. I was actually kind of angry when I saw the price for it this year because it's a hell of a lot more expensive than that. It's very mad. I did carpet and padding. There's the 2 prices for that. Carpet $309, padding $115. And people are like, why do you get the padding? I'm like, you stand on a convention floor for 8 hours a day. It'll save your feet. I did not do it on my booth this year because the booth was so big. So it would have I probably would have had like a $600 or $700 padding fee. And at that point, I was just like, we can sit on our butts. There's extra room in that booth. We can just sit on our butts. So that banner for Night in the Woods, that like big 10-foot banner, runs you about $1,000. But it breaks down in 3 pieces, and I can carry it onto an airplane, or I can ship it. Like it's actually really easy to transport around. And I have actually, people think I'm carrying a rifle. It's really funny. Why is this woman from the Midwest carrying a gun? It's not. It's a banner. But yeah, so it's like $1,000, and you can order them from a multitude of places, including here in town. The overland banner, those little small ones, usually run about $200. So if you had a 10 by 10, you could actually run like 5 of them across the back, which I've done before. I have the small ones, so I can interchange out games all the time. Those little tiny shelves, let's just pop back here. So I'm going to talk about the shelves, the ottomans in there. The shelves I Amazon Prime flat pack. Both of them were $52, or each total was $52.68. The ottomans were $10 from IKEA. We had to build them. They're kind of pain in the butt to build. The folding table was underneath the overland stuff. That was like a $25 thing from flat pack as well. I bought 2 camping chairs from Walmart for $20, which I then shipped off with friends. And then I just call it marketing paper. That's all the cards and stuff, business cards, game cards, whatever. Usually about $150 per show. Buttons, real expensive. And for this one, we probably spent about $300. And then the Coroplast TV toppers, you can actually see on top of Overland. You can actually get them printed at Fast Signs on 28th Street for pretty cheap. And we attach them with Velcro. And that also on top has our controller cards as well. You can see it on the floor there between the Night in the Woods. I'd lost my Night in the Woods ones at some point, so I was only using like an old controller card. So all of that is about $3,800, more than that, 38 some change, which is insane. Especially when you consider the other stuff. I had to fly from Michigan for like a $337 flight into Austin. I picked up my friend there, so I didn't have to fly her in. Then we had a hotel that we split for like 4 or 5 days, and then we're pretty cheap. Plus a bunch of people took us out to eat because Twitch was there and stuff. So our food was about $200. We went to a bunch of parties, which covered booze. I don't drink much, but always nice to get invited to parties because it covers your booze. So a little bit of context on these numbers, or on the numbers. So I can't do anything about my fees for the show, or the electricity, or the carpet and padding. That Night in the Woods banner, when I used it last year, had been traveling with me since I purchased it in 2014, I think. Might have been late 2000 or in 2015. My years get messed up. Wait, 14, 15, 16, 17. It was purchased in 2014 for my first PSX, PlayStation Experience. That thing has been traveling forever. It's paid for itself 1,000 times over. My Overland banner, same thing. It was a $200 purchase, but it had been purchased years before. So if I had to do any sort of like depreciation on that, I mean, per show, we're pretty low, because the small ones go to GDC, they go to BitBash in Chicago, they go to, I ship those around if my game is just at a game room someplace, like those little tiny banners. They're really easy to ship around, so they move everywhere. Then I have my furniture that I got off of Amazon. The marketing paper I buy in bulk, so that wasn't my cost just for that show. That was just the marketing paper I purchased sometime in the previous 3 or 4 months, which I had used, and I just take a bunch and take with me. I usually do now a lot more often, and the order's a little bit bigger, but usually like once a quarter, I just buy a bunch of cards, and they just go. So every quarter, I go through about $150 in cards and $300 in buttons. And those Coroplast TV toppers, same thing. I had purchased way before. So I had a whole bunch of junk already sitting around that we had gradually built up over the years. So my PAX South actual cost is mostly a little bit of furniture and what PAX will charge me to exhibit there. And then just getting us, like the normal travel fees, which you can only do so much with. So we actually rebuy super cheap booth furniture everywhere we go, because it's cheaper for me to buy it than ship it. Which sounds ludicrous, but it's absolutely true. Shipping in crates is very expensive and point to point. So the union taking that crate and putting it in my booth and then taking it back and shipping it, like that fee is like usually by pounds. So like if you have a big ass heavy crate on a forklift, they will weigh that damn thing and then bring it to your booth, and you fill it back up, they'll weigh it again, and they will charge you per pound. Like it's something like every 50 pounds is how IndieBox was explaining it. That would blow up my budget like $700, $800, $900. I have friends who spend way more than that in point to point with big old crates and shipping fees. And then I borrow, reuse, and bring everything. PAX 2017, yeah, it's like, what year is it? PAX 2017, I borrowed televisions from people in Austin. Half the time, like, I'll ask on Twitter, I need to borrow some stuff. Anyone got an extra TV I can load up for the weekend? There are indie communities in like every city that you would ever go to, and they will absolutely loan you things. It's how I get by in LA every time. I never buy TVs in LA. I just start asking around to see who has some that I can borrow. I am not a buy at Costco or Best Buy and then return. It's a really terrible thing to do. Some people do it, but it's really terrible. And half the time they will charge you a restocking fee. So yeah, that's just a reminder what it looked like in 2017. That was a 10 by 10. So I have my PAX South, what I just did this last month, which is way more painful to look at. I was running 7 stations. I had 10 badges. I had to double my electricity. That's just the carpet fee. Like, just to rent that carpet was $1,700. I'm still using the same Night in the Woods banner, the same Overland, or a new but big Overland banner, a new but big Tunic banner. I've got 2 of my little Finji banners, which I bought years ago. I now have 7 Amazon shelves. I love these Amazon shelves, for a total of $201. I don't think they can be used after that weekend because they are trash, but they suffice. I have 7 2-seater ottomans that can fit up to like 360 pounds, which is awesome because they also just pop out. I don't have to build them. They like fold flat too. They're the weirdest things. And those are, for all of them, $258. I had 2 bar tables. which are kind of a pricey. They're like $50, and I actually saved those. They're sitting in an Austin storage unit right now. I went through more marketing paper. I spent $300 on that quarter. Buttons, a lot. But we put in orders for like 2,000 buttons because I had so many shows. And then I had to buy a couple new Coroplast TV toppers because my Tunic stuff, we printed them for PlayStation controllers and then realized we were only ever going to travel with Xbox controllers because they're more robust. So I had to print new cards for Tunic. And since I wasn't doing a bunch of them, they were a little bit more expensive. So when you add all that up, we're at like $13,000, which gives me anxiety. Yeah, this is how I look at money. I'm just like, ha ha, that's hilarious. Whew, okay. So I had to fly 2 people in for this. I had to fly in, and then Felix Kramer had to fly in from AGDQ, I think was going on that week. We also had a hotel. We had a one double bed hotel, which 3 of us stayed in. Food and parking is actually pretty expensive. Ran us about $600 because I had to park like 2 cars. I hesitate to call my car a car. I drove a U-Haul all weekend. Little tip, U-Haul rentals are way cheaper than a car rental if you have to haul gear. I got in at the Austin Bergstrom Airport. I Ubered or taxied myself over to a U-Haul on Ben White, rented a U-Haul, picked up my junk in Austin, and drove to San Antonio, which is 70 miles away. And then just had a U-Haul for 5 days. So if I wanted to rent a Suburban, it's $1,000 to haul the same gear, which I have done before because I'm not driving a U-Haul in LA, and it was a really painful use of money. But that is a heck of a tip if you got to haul gear. If you're not going through snow, you can also get minivans for about half the cost of a Suburban if they're available. I did have to ship a bunch of stuff. It was like $625, but none of that, only about $100 of that actually came back. I only had to ship like $100 back. I was like $525, and I used $100 to ship things back. Again, there's context. So there's this stuff that actually like matters, which is like how much I actually have to spend. So like the booth fee, the electricity, the carpet. All of this other stuff is junk that I am reusing at every single show. So yes, I had to pay it, but I didn't pay that out just for one show. I'm paying that out for multiple shows. So if you're only looking at one game running those sort of costs, you're like, it's actually not that bad. I'm going to invest in a big sign once, and you better love that artwork. That's your rule. You love that artwork because you're going to run with that artwork forever. Which is why, like, and I'll show you sort of our signs again. Ours are not images of our game. They are artistic renditions of how we want our people to feel when they look at our game. But they're never screenshots on our banners, and that is on purpose because we will use these banners forever. I mean, gosh, that Night in the Woods banner, like I printed it in 2014, and we are still shipping that thing around. Again, I've got my Amazon flat pack orders, which sort of like takes out a bunch. The marketing, so the paper, the buttons, even the t-shirts I don't count because I'm going to sell those. The marketing paper and the buttons were purchased right after PAX West in September. And I took them to TwitchCon, PSX, PAX South, and I still have enough left over for East. I'm not going to have to reorder until after East. And that's the full cost for that. And they're usually, marketing paper is usually Vistaprint. So yeah, how do we offset sort of our pricing? We run a Finji store. We sell a bunch of t-shirts and we just are constantly adding them. And then we also, at the show, we sell, if we have either Steam codes or itch.io codes of our games. So we have Steam codes of Night in the Woods that we sell, and we have itch.io codes of Overland that we sell. So PAX South merch sales, usually IndieBox actually runs our merch for us. That's how I inherited an extra 10 by 20s because IndieBox decided not to come sort of last minute. So I just took it over for them. But it meant I had to run my own merch sales, which meant I don't run it as efficiently as someone else would. I sold 95 of my 100 shirts that I brought. It's like a $12 profit. And we didn't sell a ton of codes, but we also weren't pushing them. So it's like a $1,400 net revenue, and I had to take out the sales tax because you have to pay sales tax when you're in a different state, which is like $2,300 gross. I don't count, and I haven't counted just because it would take forever for me to figure it all out. We sold a ton of shirts from the online store during the show because we ran out of sizes, because I had a ton of orders when I got home. We sold a bunch more copies of Overland during the show. And when we're running the playground, which is sort of what we call our island at East and West, IndieBox runs the merch, and it's just a dedicated merch station, and we have like proper signage and everything. Our merch area at PAX South was like a bunch of boxes. I mean, you saw it. It was a hot mess.
Yeah.
We improvised, which is sort of the name of the game when you're at conventions, is you just make it work with whatever you got. So yeah, just real quick, let me pop back over. So that's what our booth looked like. And that those two sort of tables right here, imagine on either side of that Finji thing, just having like sort of stacks of like drink tubs in pastel colors. And then eventually we ended up with a sign around the front of those tables that we like used packing tape and made it look official. And we actually taped cardboard on top of it to manage our stock. Like you do. You just improvise. So yeah, TVs. So I haven't talked about TVs, and that's because TVs are the one thing that's gonna blow out your budget. It's super expensive, and I refuse to buy them and return them. So I'll show you this a little bit later. But at PAX South, I bought a bunch of TVs last fall, and I gave forever permission to a nonprofit indie game collective in Austin to use them whenever they want, so long as I get to use them for PAX South every year. So I basically donated 7 TVs to a nonprofit. They store them in their storage unit with all their arcade cabinets, and I show up, I borrow them for 3 days, I return them, and we're done. And I never have to worry about trying to find TVs. And if one breaks, I'll just replace it. TVs are getting used, and I never have to worry about it again. Because it's cheaper for me to own TVs in a certain place than try to figure out how to get a hold of them every year. When it was like 1 or 2 TVs, it didn't matter, but I need 7. 7 TVs is like a $2,000 purchase. And this is something I've been actually figuring out this year. But if it's 1 or 2, I can borrow those. So yeah, some other things that I've been to. I'm just going to show you now some of the shows I've been to sort of over the last several years. Basically whatever I could pull out of Twitter without having to dig through stuff. So I've been to all 4 PlayStation experiences. This is in Anaheim, yeah. For PlayStation Experience, you get invited by Sony. So Night in the Woods got invited. And we ran 2 stations, 2 Night in the Woods, and a 10x10 booth, and we have like a corner location. In the past, Sony actually pays for your booth and your hotel. You get 1 hotel room and your booth. So I just have to show up with the junk you see. Actually, no. I have to show up with a sign, my seats, and this, if I want to. Because they actually provide, since it's PlayStation, I show up with PlayStations, and they're like in my booth already, which is amazing. Like behind this, there's like a locking cabinet that we hide. So yeah, it runs on Sony equipment, and I've been able to borrow 2 TVs in the past. So I didn't have to come up with televisions. Best, cheapest show, and like a dedicated PlayStation audience. So if you're ever running like a PlayStation port or something, this PlayStation experience is awesome. PAX East 2017, this was right after Night in the Woods launched. We were part of the Indie Mega Booth, which is why that carpet is clashing red. I didn't realize it was going to be red carpet, or else I would have. And ended up looking not that bad. It matches Night in the Woods really well. But again, you can sort of see the overland camping chairs. We had 5 stations in like a little 10 by 15. I can do a lot with a little bit of space. And we just are really creative with lines. We're on a corner location again. Usually whenever I am part of something like the Indie Mega Booth or I talk to PAX, I remind them I have problems with lines. Because if I'm stuck between people, my lines cover up other people's booths, and that means they get complaints. So I just remind them that I need like a whole side of a booth and like a front of a booth to run lines off of, and then we sort of do these like zigzags back and forths. PAX West 2017 is the first time I did a 10 by 20. There are 7 stations in that booth. I've got 2 standing Tunic, 2 standing Night in the Woods, and I have 3 seated Overlands with like my tiny small interchangeable banners that I have been traveling around with forever. Same stupid ottomans that flat pack, same stupid bar tables. These things hold like something like 360 pounds. These small ones hold like 285. Same horrible like $20 like shelving units off of Amazon. And I ship everything to friends. God bless friends in other cities. I had 2 friends that collected all my junk, and I just drove around and picked it up the day before, or the morning of setup, actually. I went to TwitchCon. Man, my life sucks when I go through these. TwitchCon is weird. You're in these like little prisons. They have these tall walls, and it's deeply uncomfortable, and everything's purple. But like those walls are really uncomfortable. But we ran 2 stations, 1 Tunic, 1 Overland. I borrowed televisions in LA, and I just showed up with shelves and these like flat pack things. And my computers go in my backpack on planes. So if you're ever in the airport with me, behind me in security, I'm sorry. I will fly with 7 computers in my backpack or more. That's 7 stations. Some of them are even PlayStation test kits. They're real heavy, and thank God I never have to travel with an Xbox, because I'd only be able to go with one because it's so big. This PlayStation Experience 2017, again, Night in the Woods got invited. 2 stations, super easy. That's a 12 by 12. It's like the hugest booth. And I had 4 people working that weekend. And then, yeah, our stuff. This is my storage unit in Seattle. That's how I am optimizing saving my TV cost. Also table costs, and basically anything that was kind of expensive. There's a storage facility that's a mile just right down the road. It's like close enough to walk to it. And I have this little like 4x5. Probably by the end of next year, I'll have at least 2 or 3 other indies in there, because we all are running into the same problem. As soon as you get over like 2 or 3 TVs, you're like, oh shit. It's not cost effective for me to give these away anymore. It's better to just store the darn things, because we're going to be back anyways. I just rent a car, and since this is so close, I can just move it back and forth. The only problem is PAX West runs over Labor Day, so I'm probably gonna have to move storage units, because they keep changing the rules on holiday accessibility hours, and I need to be able to get in there until like 9 p.m. after the show floor closes. And technically holidays count as Sundays, which is stupid. But that's me in an airport with my crap. Ugh, it's the worst. Sometimes that big old box, which is like 2 double signs, goes as cargo luggage. And that's my basement. And it only has some of my boxes down there, but we have storage in our basement of everything that needs to be here. That's all my t-shirts and merch. The red boxes are usually cards and stickers and buttons, and currently I have too much because I have PAX East coming up, so I've got crap everywhere. So yeah, that's everything. That's me. And yeah, you can follow us on the Twitters. And I'm full of questions. I've been to all of this stuff for a long time, so yeah.
Alright, you guys have questions? Raise hands.
Yeah.
I have an insane question. You talk a lot about attendance and sort of like the amount of people, but did you keep track of the? It's gonna sound the same. But
There's no way.
Yeah.
I have pictures, like we take pictures just like documenting the insane number of people that sort of are in the booths, because especially PAX South, none of the big AAA studios are there. It's mostly an indie show. And you just end up with lines of people everywhere. People pop in and pop out. They just want to talk to you. They don't want to play. They don't want to spoil. They're just a fan. Cosplayers. I mean, it's like a constant like attack of like sensory overload of people like shouting things at you, and like PAX East especially, and I warn everyone, like you have to wear earplugs at PAX East. You don't realize how loud the ambient level of the show floor is until you get off the show floor, and then your ears ring all night. But when you're there, you're like, oh, it's fine. I'm not sitting next to like some like bass trash like crap going on. No, it's just the ambient level is so high. Like it hurt. It was like physically painful last year. And this year, yeah, we have to wear earplugs, especially if you work in audio. Don't want to damage your hearing that bad. Oh, I had a thing. We do capture. We have an iPad, and there's like you can just put up a Google form on your iPad to get email signups.
Yeah.
It's really easy, and we have one that like locks to our tables, and like an iPad lock. We just like put an iPad out, and I have signups for, it's on all one page, like one for Tunic, one for Overland, and then just the Finji generic newsletter. And they're all in the same thing. You can like sort of just check box. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, so for our booth, I made an Android app that runs, and it's like themed for the game, and you can type your email in and hit submit, and it makes the wizard death sound, but no one can hear it because it's PAX.
Yeah, you're not going to get internet on the show floor.
Yeah, so
you
it
have
saves
to do
it locally.
offline stuff. Yeah.
It saves it to a file. But yeah, to answer your question about attendance, yeah, it's kind of hard to know, but we had a webcam running the whole time, so technically I could go back and count, but I'm not gonna.
Am I gonna be the only one to ask questions?
Go, Garrett.
So your carpet was the biggest one that surprised me. That
God,
everybody
it's so
could do
expensive.
carpet.
Ooh. So for a 10x10, they allow you to have just like a free package.
Yes.
Which includes like 9x10 piece of square. That's not really square, I guess. Rectangle of carpet. And then that includes 5 amps of power. Current, I guess. And then.
Like a table, a chair, and a trash
Oh yeah,
can.
yep. Table.
Yeah, so
2
you
chairs
get
and a trash can.
Your 6-foot
Yep.
table, chair, and a trash can.
So all that stuff is free. I mean, not really free, but free in addition to the cost of the booth.
Yep.
But if you have a bigger booth.
Yeah, so what you can do with like the 10x10s too, because 5 amps is not going to get you anything. Like that's like a merch booth often. But if you're running 4 systems, or if you're running 2 systems, you're going to you might get your stuff shut off. And then you have to pay like the extra amount of money for like the emergency fix on the electricity. Which if you ever ask Rami's very funny. He's like, so what I do, I'm not sure if I'm burning too much power, is I just run it during setup. And you'll know if it's too much because they'll just shut you off, and you'll come back later that night and all your stuff will be shut off. And then you buy your extra 5 amps or whatever. But it's still like, you can figure this out before you go.
Yeah.
You just read the back of your TVs and computers. It's pretty easy. It's always by slightly too much, not by much. But in the event that if I wanted to add 1 extra system, I usually have that sitting around. If a entire extra area drops into my lap for some reason, or we have to charge multiple laptops or something. There's always crap going on behind the scenes. But yeah, the carpet's so expensive. You can go without, but it's just cement floor. Like no one will sit down in your booth. Like, and that's what we want. Our booth is very cozy. We want people to come in. We want them to sit down with their friends. I want people crowded around. I want people low and high all crowded around my systems, because I want to evoke sort of like you're in your living room playing games with your friends. That sort of stuff sticks with people. No one's gonna sit on a cold floor. You can show up with your own carpet if you want. I don't know.
You could do that.
Like Rami did this year because he forgot to buy carpet, and I showed up, it was green. And he said green I'm like, I don't know where you got that, but I mean, cool. Fred found it in San Antonio and rolled it out.
Is that one of those things that you store? The carpet?
I don't. I just rent it. I can't even imagine carrying. I don't want that carpet anywhere near me after a convention.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
That'd be disgusting.
I mean, they were closing schools for the flu, just like they are now. But in San Antonio, while we were there, and there's a bunch of kids that are coming through. There's students. I mean, I went through 6 hand sanitizer things. Like, we were hand sanitizing up to our armpits, basically. Like, I mean, all the way up to here. I've never done that before. I definitely don't want that carpet anywhere near me.
Yeah, and then on that note, we actually bought foam tiles this year, actually.
Oh, nice.
Because,
Yeah, you can just bring those.
Yep, so that's what we did, because, yeah, anyone who has been at the convention kind of knows how, like, it just, like, destroys your legs and stuff like that. Like, typically day 1 is okay. Day 2, you definitely feel it, and the last day of the show, like, you don't want to stand at all.
Yeah.
And so we bought foam tiles this time, and even by the end of the convention, like, we could all still walk, which was nice, so.
Yeah, so in regards to the electricity, I bought like a multimeter that you can plug in and then run all of your stuff through that, see what it actually... So I actually paid for the 10 amp before I bought that, and then I ran our whole system, and it actually like came out to like 350 watts. Yeah, because we only run one station essentially, but it's my brother's like monster of a desktop. And then we had desktop speakers to it once we got there, so I don't actually know what those draw. So it might be over, but I probably didn't have to pay $200, but I did anyway, to be safe. Yeah.
Do you guys see like mobile specific games at these conventions?
Yes.
Are they more like,
Yeah.
How do they set those up?
They'll usually have like 3 to 7 just like sitting on the table.
They're all locked.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just put, I mean, you can get them, they're like $20 on Amazon or whatever, the little iPad locks, and they have these like funny keys, don't lose the keys. And you can either, it has like a little hand thing on it, like, so if you're doing email signups or whatever, or yeah, you can just run the wires underneath and like lock it to the table. At the end of the night, like I remove all of my computers, like I haul all 7 of my computers back and forth to my hotel room every night, because I have test kits and stuff on the show floor, like I can't go leaving that shit around. And all of my booth has like hidden storage everywhere. Like all those ottomans open up. That's where all my marketing gear is. Like everything is, it buttons, everything, t-shirts, it's all hidden in those ottomans. And there's like security on the show floor at night, but you don't leave computers.
Or pastel buckets.
Pastel buckets. There are a lot of pastel buckets.
Yeah. How long do you want a play session to be? Like how long do you want it to go
That's a
on?
good question.
Mine are different from all my games. We cut. Okay, so I think you mentioned it. You don't want someone sitting there until you have to kick them off. I once took Feist onto a show floor and we hadn't cut it into a demo, and 2 hours later they were still beating Feist. I was like, "You've got!" And it was actually like our first, maybe second shows, RTX in Austin. It's like we can't get these people off. Like, what do we do? How do we? They're having a lot of fun, and at the same time, like, but no one else for 2 hours has been playing this game. And now they're gonna beat it or something, and now they're not gonna buy the game either. They just are gonna beat this game on the show floor. So yeah, Tunic used to have like just run, like Dicey used to just put a timer on them, and you could play it until the timer ran out, and you set up appointments. So he would have like day 1, basically like every 15 minutes, people would have to show up for their appointment to play their game, which is actually how AAA studios will actually run it. Except they run a demo, like at PlayStation Experience. All of ours are like Night in the Woods, cuts before it gets into any squirrely. So it's like a very direct path. It goes through the end of pizza and arm poking at the end of day 2. May goes to sleep and it tells you thank you. And it's a screen that says, "Thank you for playing Night in the Woods. You can buy it here." And then it auto restarts. Overland, you can go through the first biome. Most people, however, if they're new players, will burn it all down before they get there. It's very rare that somebody will actually get to the boss level on a show floor. And then they're usually skipping things. I've only seen it happen like twice. Most people, 10, 15 minutes. But they're playing together. That's the whole point of Overland, is you cram as many friends around a computer as possible. Tunic, 7 to 11 minutes. And then boot them out. Especially Tunic has, well, all my games have line problems, but Tunic really has line problems. Because it's like a action adventure game with like a cute fox and a sword. I mean, it's so video gamey that people are like, "What is this?" And again, we cram as many people as possible around a computer to move them through. And we encourage people to pass the controller back and forth. Psychologically, we do that on purpose because that's what you would do if you're sitting at home playing with friends, and then they talk about it when they leave. So we want, if somebody's in front of a TV, we want all of them engaged in what's going on.
You guys do wired controllers too, or do you do wireless?
All wired. I've seen some funny stuff happen with interference, mostly in VR, actually. I've seen like people tinfoil whole booths in VR. But yeah, we've had interference, batteries just dying, having to recharge them all the time. The PlayStation ones pop out. Right now we treat these things like they're manna from God or something, but like the wired 360 controllers, you can't even buy them anymore, but we have as many wired 360 controllers as possible. Those things are beasts. And they always work. I'll kill somebody if they steal them from my booth. 'Cause they're so hard to get a hold of.
I have a question from Twitch. How do you get people that don't know each other to play a multiplayer game together?
That's you.
Make a 10-player game. No. That's a good question. Typically, as a group of friends will like come in and start playing, and then you can, as people walk by, you actually say, "Hey, you guys want to play?" It's up to you. Just say how many players there are, and that there's open controllers. And at gaming conventions, 99% of the time, people will go, "Okay," and they'll jump in and play. At Comic Cons, it's more like 30%. Yeah. But yeah, who asked that question? Is it? Oh, okay. He's got like an 8-player game, right?
4? He's the one that did the food game.
The food game, yeah. I thought it was 8.
I think it's 4 players, 2 hands, both joysticks, I think.
So I thought there were 4 characters. Each of them had 2 people controlling the character.
Maybe.
I don't know. Whatever. Either way,
You can answer
either way for Mage Quit, there's like there's a section where people are typing their names in. So it's a nice coincidence that it takes a little while to do that. So then, as people walk by, they can join in at that point. Also, for Mage Quit, there's rounds. So this is something he can think about. If I think his is like a series of food-related mini games. Okay, so for Mage Quit, we added in convention mode, you can actually jump in and out. So if people are walking by, you can say, "Hey, you guys want to play? We got there's room for 5 more people. You can jump in after this round," and then so you double tap A, and it adds them into the game. And then when the round ends, they're in the game. Because we ran into that problem early on where you'd be at a convention and you'd get 3 people play a game, and then you get 20 people walk by while the game's happening, and no one else joined. So yeah, being able to add and remove players dynamically in your game is a good way to do that, and then also reaching out to them as they walk by is helpful.
I appeal to, this is not for multiplayers, but there's probably a bunch of single player stuff. Like, how do you get people to play your game? Or my line is too long, how do I move it faster? I appeal to people's impatience, and I encourage strangers to play together. Like, Night in the Woods, I've had complete strangers like sharing one of those little ottomans together. I get strangers sitting on the floor, especially for Overland. It's really fun to bicker with people as you play it. Even though it's a single player game, it's really fun to sort of like argue about strategy with somebody. So oftentimes when people are waiting, like, we'll see people standing next to each other, they're not talking to each other, like they're being, normal humans. And if you go over and engage both of them in conversation, you can encourage them to meet each other. And then you can encourage them, "Hey, you guys just want to play together?" Like, that's intentional. That's absolutely something I do. One, it moves people through faster. I need as many eyeballs as possible on my game. I want them to be happy waiting for my booth. I don't want them to leave my booth thinking, "Man, fucking lines are too long. Man, that was bullshit," or something. Like, I don't want that. I want them to be like, "I met this cool person, and then we had a conversation, and then I played a game, and we had fun, and then I left." And like and then they may have made a new friend on top of that. So, yeah. But I mean, yeah, you have to like go out of your comfort zone to like orchestrate that sort of thing in a natural way. You're stuck there all day. You might as well talk to people. Or not. I mean, maybe I'm just the weird one.
No, that's probably good.
Anybody else got another question?
Yeah.
Sorry about my last question. Becca, you mentioned that PAX South AAAs don't go to that.
It's the smallest PAX.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's the smallest PAX and the newest PAX. It's
so
like-
do you think that helps or hurts? Because there's less attendance, but there's
People are there for
There's
indies
actually,
more.
so the attendance is actually not that much less. Like, they sell out every single day. There's more games for everyone to play, which, I don't know, like, I go to all of them, and like, West is just really intense. Like all the biz happens at West because it's kind of the halfway point after GDC. So like that's when I have to meet with all the consoles and all the business people, and like all of that happens. And it's on multiple floors. You're always on the wrong floor out at the Seattle Convention Center. And half the time the escalators are broken. Like it's a very uncomfortable building often. And all the AAA is down on the 4th floor, on like the neon dark level. And then sort of all the indies and a lot of the good merch is sort of up on the 6th floor. And East is just like a big cavern with like super tall ceilings. I mean, it's in just an enormous giant football field with ceilings that feel twice as high, which is why it echoes so bad. And it feels like you can kind of get lost in there. And they have all these other rooms sort of up around the edges that have crap going on in them, and special rooms for like Nintendo may just have a whole room, which is the Nindy room, and it's like not even on the show floor. It's like way up someplace else. But like South is just indies. Like there's tons of games to play. Everything is a game across the whole floor, which is, in my opinion, super cool. Also, almost all the micro publishers, like the indie publishers, are there. So like Annapurna has a big booth. Devolver has a big booth. I think Double Fine also has a thing set up down there because they're kind of Tiny Build has a great booth there. But then all like the really good merch as well, and you're kind of all like in the same little island. So usually where there'd be like just, Resident Evil 9000 with like zombies hanging out of windows, with like 7 stations maybe that you can play it, and like lines around the block, like that doesn't happen. Like people are just running around playing games, which is like super cool when you don't have people sick of waiting in line for 4 hours to play AAA whatever.
I'd say the biggest game there was Monster Hunter World.
Oh yeah.
They had a giant
Dauntless
dragon.
had a big thing too.
Yeah, they had a giant dragon hanging from the ceiling pretty much, which was cool. And people actually were run walking when it opened to get to that booth. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, I think what we kind of notice, like going to PAX East, which has like a lot of the big companies and stuff like that, especially if someone shows up and they've only got like a 1-day badge, like they probably have like a big game in mind that they want to play, and like they'll spend like half the day just waiting in line to play that game and stuff like that, and then that's pretty much like the whole PAX is gone. So at PAX South, it's just a lot more laid back, and we get a lot more people kind of just like they just want to play games, like check out stuff. Again, whereas like the big shows, a lot of the people that we get, they're kind of like on their way to like go see something big, or like they kind of got tired of waiting in line, and so they finally kind of come back out and stuff. So that
conversation of like, oh, I really don't have time to wait,
mm-hmm.
which is like that's at East and West. I don't have time to wait for this. Mm-hmm. I don't have time to wait. It's like, well, yeah, I know you've been waiting. You've been sitting here waiting for quite a while. Go wait for something else, I guess. West, well. South is actually also really conducive to just visiting the city. Like one, it's pretty cheap. Like you were walkable, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. So like what, $110 walkable hotel. That's like
it's less than a half mile.
You can't even do that in Boston, or one, you can't even get walkable really in Boston because it's on like this peninsula thing. It's Boston. That is the hardest convention center to get into. And West, I mean, you're in Seattle, so you're like Seattle pricing. Again, right downtown, super expensive hotels. Like we stay usually Airbnb on the light rail line, like out of the city, and then we light rail in order to get out of like the crazy pricing in Seattle. But like you can stay within walkable for super affordable, and there's food everywhere because it's on the Riverwalk. It's just like where like old people or adults sort of like have grown-up weekends away. Romantic getaway weekend is like the boardwalk, which I find utterly charming. It's a weird place. But there's like, boats on a river, and you can like sit on patios next to the river, and the Alamo's right there if you care, with the weirdo wax museum. San Antonio is strange.
How early is appropriate to start going to conferences with a game? Should your game already be sellable? Or if it's 2 years out, should you be going? Or
do you have something to show? Like, do you think it looks cool? Is it playable? Do you have something to show? Like, it's never too early to start building an audience. if anything, like that's what's gonna save you. Like if you can afford it and still afford rent and development and food and like all the important stuff, if you can squirrel away some money, like I would start looking at ways to get out to show people things. Because like people are sort of always yell like, well, no press covers my game. Well, it's like, well, they're also being badgered with emails every single day from everything, but press are at these shows. They're walking by. There's a press hour. They have press lists that you can vet and invite people out to it if they're interested in your type of thing. Like, and all you need is like, it's almost like press needs permission to write about your game. Like, oh, nobody's written about it. Maybe I shouldn't. But if multiple people start writing about it, more people are seeing it, and that's not like more people are going to buy it, but also more press. And the more people who are sort of vouching for the coolness, like that's how viral things spread. That's how you sort of get your reputation or whatever. We took Overland to, it was really, really ugly, to like the mild rumpus at GDC in 2015. It doesn't look anything like that now. It didn't even have bad guys in it until like 3 days before. They were like ugly ass like pink pixel monsters. And that's when we showed it the first time, was at the mild rumpus at GDC. And then we took it to RTX that summer, just ugly as hell. It was super broken. We took it to PAX South that next year. And it's just sort of been going as it's been getting iterated on this whole time. We took Night in the Woods to its first, we took it to E3 2014 with a demo in the Sony booth. It had been in development for 6 months. Like Alec just like built the demo, and 90% of that demo is not even in the final game. It just, this is what the game's gonna be in 2014. Like, I mean, it just came out last year. And like Tunic was shown very, very early. A lot of the art style and color and everything has changed. And the demo we show now has been carefully, surgically cut off while we continue to make this whole big giant thing behind it. But I mean, Dicey took it to PAX East or PAX West 2016-ish. I remember his first show. It might have been PAX East last year. They showed up in like Fox suits. I'm just trying to remember when that was, because I was in the middle of Night in the Woods when that happened. I remember thinking it was really funny. And I mean, Dicey's not going to release that game until, you know, or next year at the earliest. So it's never too early to start building an audience and like building like an email list, and just how much cool stuff do you have to show? Can you polish off like a really engaging experience in like 10 to 15 minutes? Can you afford to build a sign? Can you like physically speak to other, like, is that comfortable? Can you speak to other people in like an enthusiastic way? Which is like really hard. Like I get tremendous anxiety. Like me day before the show is like not eating and like really uncomfortable, and it's like, okay, you got to turn on different Becca, like not the homebody who doesn't talk all day, but like show Becca. We actually call it show Becca. Our team actually makes fun of show Becca because show Becca just shouts all day. I feel really weird talking about myself like this, but it's like a thing. Like I have anxiety, and like you have to sort of get to the point where it's like I have to sell my games, and what mountain do you have to climb to sort of do that? On like all sort of the axes.
Yeah, so the first convention that we went to show off a game, we spent a month and a half on that build. It was just like, it was nothing, and like we just slammed a bunch of time into it to show off the build, and yeah, like none of that showed up in the final game mostly, so it was basically just like, this is the gist of the game, like this is what we want to show off and stuff. And then also like getting feedback, like that's one of the best things about going to shows and stuff like that, is like seeing things in the game that you didn't expect that people like get caught up on, like, oh, in this level they keep getting stuck on this, like we didn't anticipate that. And then also kind of on the other side of things, like kind of not wanting to make the game too complex, because people are always like, oh, we should do this and then this and then this, but if you go to a show and you show off that basic idea and like that is enough to sell it, like you kind of don't necessarily have to inflate that system necessarily and stuff. So it's kind of always good to kind of see that, like, oh, we thought people would hate this because it's too simple, but like that was something they actually loved. So it's kind of cool seeing that.
Yeah, so I did it wrong, I guess. I waited like a year and a half to do mine, and it was already on Steam. But but I'm probably too critical of my own work. So.
Another thing, this is actually something that happened with Overland a lot, is the way we were talking about the game and the way other people not on the development team talk about the game were completely different. So we actually vet a lot of like our like marketing messages and like what resonates with people on the show floor. We often we will ask questions that are the equivalent of like telling them to tell me what they think they're looking at. Like, tell me about my game. What do you like about this? Like, we sort of talk around things and like the way like this this survival strategy. We weren't the ones that put those two words together. We were like, this it's a procedurally generated, survival strategy road trip. I mean, we just kept going on and on. We used roguelike in a sentence, and wow, watch the eyes glaze over at most show floors because you don't know who you're talking to. Turn-based, you're just like hardcore. Like, why are we saying all those words? That's not the words they needed to hear. Like, survival strategy road trip. Like, those were the words they wanted to hear, and we needed to vet that on the show floor.
So, like, during those early stages before, you guys have polished the game or whatever, is there like things you recommend having in place, like kind of like maybe like a marketing schedule, or just to make sure you're releasing things afterwards, or maybe like obviously the sign up list, but like some kind of like email or like web page dedicated to the thing, to the game and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, we have our website, we have our press kit. Should I tell you what that is real quick? Yeah, you know what a press kit is?
Rami.
It's fine to say no. Okay, it's real quick. Yeah, so you can use Press Kit, the Rami's tool. It's basically a place where you have, this is the story of me, this is the story of my game, this is what my game is, and here's screenshots, GIFs, email, people who work on the game, places I've talked, cool things I've said, media articles. It's kind of like just your landing page for a Press Kit. Ours are really ugly right now for Finji, but yeah, that's the Rami's Press Kit. We're actually redoing all of ours right now to sort of have like a hub for all important information. So if a journalist or anyone else comes to it, they're like, oh, cool, that's who these people are. I can follow them on the Twitters. Awesome. Or there's the website for the game, and there's my newsletter sign up, and it should have double authentication. Otherwise, you'll live the last year of my life, or Adam's life. God bless Adam. We had a whole bunch of spam signups, and we're getting like spam notices and getting our newsletter access shut down and all sorts of stuff because like we had just set something up wrong. It's really awkward considering we're like grown-ups. But like, yeah, you want them to engage with you on their terms. I hate Facebook. God, I hate Facebook, but I have Facebook pages. And so up until March 1st, I'm the one reading and trying to do Facebook pages, which I hate. It's awful, but I'm eventually gonna be getting a community manager for this. So like, yeah, all of that should be in place. And then you go to, and it doesn't take that long to set up. You go to the show, and just be a landing page. Like, Tunic Game is seriously, it's like a picture of Tunic, the logo, and like a sign up for like the newsletter. That's like it. And then, yeah, you can wish list it and watch the teaser. I like that. This is a mailing list sign up, and he has hearts because Dicey's completely amazing. But like, super simple, and that captures you in all the ways you want. You can follow him on Twitter, you can sign up for the newsletter, you can wish list it on Steam, like right there. And that wish list was not there when that page went live. Because, well, under the Secret Legend page, because it used to be called that.
Yeah, Do You Like Secrets doesn't make as much sense now.
That's
still catchy though.
That's so much the game. Do you like secrets?
Okay.
You're a small fox on an adventure, discovering secrets. It's like we have like a whole line I can tell you all about Tunic in about 15 words. So yeah, but we have this kind of for like all of our stuff. Some place where people can engage with you in any meaningful way after the show. And yeah, we actually do have newsletters. So if you're gonna like collect email addresses, you should do at least something. Don't spam them with trash, but tell them stuff. Like Dicey makes little funny videos about things that he's doing, and he will put black boxes over what he doesn't want people to see. So he's like, I've been working on this, and it's just like he's in his like very like Canadian professor voice. It's really great. Ours will, like, Adam will do sort of like design problems that we've been fixing, and he'll put together like a design article that he'll link to in the newsletter, and he'll be, hey, we were here, and he'll put a picture of us at the show we were at. Also, did you know that Night in the Woods came out on Switch? And that'd be in our newsletter. And that would be in our Overland newsletter, just at the bottom. But it'll be like, this is what we've been doing on Overland. Remember Revenge Survivors? Let us tell you how they work and what they are. And you should play First Access if you haven't played in a while. Sorry, we probably broke your save game. Like, you have a tone and the way you talk to your players, and like that's the tone across. Like, our Overland Twitter is legit silly at this point. It's just a bunch of dog bugs that we come across. And like Adam posts up like his change logs, which are just us making fun of ourselves. Like, and this did this, you're welcome, we fixed it, sorry. Which gets a bunch of people interacting with us like, dude, that's a feature. It's like, really, it's not. Giant dog is not a feature. Sorry, we don't have Clifford in the game. But yeah, I mean, you can have fun with it. Like, people are like, marketing, you have to be professional. It's like, no, you don't. We work in games. You can just be yourself. Like, you're part of the game. You're part of the marketing for it. Yeah.
I think Brett touched on it a little bit, but how big of a team do you usually have, each of you, for doing these conventions? Like, how many people are
Two.
helping?
I've done, 2 to my max was 7.
Nice.
But that was PAX West, and I'm not on the show at PAX West like at all. I'm in a bunch of meetings because it's like that halfway point in the year, and because it's in Seattle, like all the consoles are there, all the people I would have to talk to, so I get pulled out of the booth a lot. So, and it was a really big booth with 3. That was too many, to be perfectly honest.
Do you think it's possible to do it solo?
I worked at PSX all day by myself, and you've done it.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Hell. It's awful, especially like a really busy booth. You can, oh man, you'll hate yourself. You'll hate your life.
Yeah, I would definitely say 2 minimum. We've been doing like about twice as many as that lately, and that's been like an awesome number because we don't have a ton of demo stations, and so typically as long as 2 people are at the booth, that's enough to hold it down, and then we have 2 people kind of like venting,
Yeah.
and like getting food and stuff like that. So
Just imagine the logistics with one. One, if you leave your booth, your enforcer at PAX will kill you. Like, if you're the only person there. Now, how are you going to go to the bathroom? Like, who's going to watch your booth? Like, when I had to do it at PSX by myself, like, PlayStation's basically like, you can't leave your booth. Like, somebody always has to be in your booth. That's our equipment there. You have to watch that. Like, somebody has to be there to answer your questions. And my partner got sick, like, throwing up all day, and couldn't come into the show floor. It was pretty positive he was hungover. No, he had the flu. He was stuck in Anaheim for an extra 3 days. And I was solo from start to finish, including teardown, which is really hard to do solo. Like, load in and load out by yourself. Oh, it's so much equipment. Even at PSX, it was so much equipment. Like, the Sony marketing people were helping me carry stuff back to the hotel. But yeah, I had no way to go get lunch. I had no way to go to the bathroom unless somebody took pity on me, which actually Kim Allen from The Hand of Fate saw me standing by myself and like brought me food, like washed my booth when I went to the bathroom. Like, I didn't even know who this person was. It was just this really nice Australian girl came over and was like, you look like you need a Tim Tam. I'm like, okay, that's cool. And is now in the special things in Night in the Woods because of it. Like, sometimes like shit happens and you got to step up. There were a couple of kids this year at PlayStation Experience that were solo in their booths, and actually had gone out with the Sony team for dinner to talk about whatever we talk about at stuff. And I was like, is anyone watching? Like, because we are, as indies, we kind of find out who's solo, and then we make sure we're running around. Like, do you have food? Do you need to go to the bathroom? Do you need lunch? But also like letting Sony know, because especially at PSX, they're also on patrol for people who are solo, to jump in their booth to give them a break. But yeah, I would not recommend it. And if you do attempt it, make friends the first day. Like, I may need you to jump in and help out. I mean, at PAX South, Rami got sick in Detroit and wasn't even there the first day. In a 10 by 20, we just had nobody in the Vlambeer booth, and we had to get it staffed. They'll just come out of the woodwork. It was like some old AAA dudes who happened to be there in town for meetings and didn't have badges, and had run like 50 by 50s before, and came and just ran the Vlambeer booth for me. There were 4 of them, and they just like switched off for meetings. I didn't know them. They were great though.
Yeah, the enforcer that was in our area offered, like, if you guys need to leave, I can watch your booth for a little while.
Yeah.
We didn't take him up on it because, I mean, when there's 2 people, you can swap out pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the aftermath like of after convention? Do you guys like talks of
Personal or?
like a critique and like okay, what happened here? What can you learn from it?
Mine are all different. I've had really horrible, like, come home and been like, well, that was fucking horrible. And then this last PAX South was like, I came home and I'm like, we did it. But often like it involves like the game. Like Overland just ran itself. Like we've torn out that UI, I mean, Lord knows how many times over the last like 3 years. And this is the first time I took it, and I answered one question on that UI all weekend. It was incredible. And like load in and load out was super easy. My staff was amazing. Like we didn't have any weird interpersonal stuff going on. I even had a new person in the booth that we'd never worked with and didn't even know. It's like a rando guy who's like, I don't have anything to do during the weekend, and I need an extra soul, and he came down from Austin to like just work my booth. People do the weirdest stuff. I wonder about sanity sometimes. Like, what was he thinking? But like, it's always a different thing. After PAX West, I came home like on a rampage. I was so mad about half, and like the way this had gone and this, but this particular thing was great, and damn, our UI was still effed up. So I mean, for us, it's really totally different. And we're getting better about getting. Cons sort of have sometimes creepers. So we had 2 things at PAX South where we actually like get out of our booth moments where like they were sort of inappropriate with people in our booth. And we're finally getting real comfortable with being like, this is my space, and that was inappropriate, and I need you to leave my space. Which has been pretty cool, because that's like a thing sort of you need to grow up into in a lot of ways, and being like confident enough to call people out on their BS. Yeah. So I was really proud of our team after PAX South, actually, because of that, because like our booth is safe, and like cute cosplay girl in outfit doesn't get creeped on in my booth, and like being confident enough to sort of like guard that is awesome. And yeah, we came out of PAX South like we did it. Like that was great. We only had 2 problems, and the problems disappeared because we sort of like said something.
I'd say for mine, I mean, I feel like I kind of covered what I learned after each of them. But the last con we were at, our controllers kept disconnecting, and then players would get swapped, so I had to keep switching chairs. Oh. It was funny though. It was kind of like a mechanic. Did that happen here?
Yeah, I just sort of did.
Probably.
Yeah, after a convention, it's nice just to kind of like step back from the game and look at it and stuff like that. Because again, like usually you've got like a schedule and like things you want to get done, like oh we need this and this, and then actually seeing what people do with the game, and
yes.
you know, analyzing holes. Like it could be like UI, it could be like, you know, AI, it could be whatever and stuff like that. So it's always a nice chance just to step back, look at it, and then pivot if you need to.
Mm-hmm. We call it onboarding.
Mm-hmm.
Like how fast can you onboard someone who's never seen your game before? Because every new eyeball at a con is a new pair of eyeballs they've never seen your game before.
Yeah.
And how fast can you onboard them?
Mm-hmm.
It's actually, yeah, that's huge usually for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, as far as when you go to these events and stuff like that, did you notice a significant bump on some of the bigger ones? I would assume you notice a pretty big bump or something, some sort of
From sales?
for sales. Yeah.
It's very small.
Very small.
I mean, it's.
Does it correspond to the actual event, or are you sending out these emails after the event, and that's when you're getting the bumps, or is that? I mean, is it all?
There is virtually no corresponding bump.
Okay.
I had a little one with Overland with my first access stuff, which usually happens after a con, but I'm talking like a couple copies a day sort of bump. We measure it by awareness, people talking about it, how in the forefront of like society, like, or gamer culture or whatever, are people interested. When somebody does a video at PAX South, are people watching it? Because the sales, like, it's sort of the same thing. Actually, my husband and I were talking about this today. Because he was talking to a streamer who was like, I want to do this thing, and I think I have this audience, and if I do this thing, then they'll buy this game. It's like, well, no, you're gonna sell like 100 copies, and that's if you're amazing. Like, streamers don't sell copies of games. Like, it's just not a thing. It's a general level of awareness and sort of viral knowing in the ether, of people being exposed to something over and over and over again, and then they buy the game. But it's not because a streamer played it. It's not because they saw a YouTube video. If anything, this in Night in the Woods case, they have it. Like, I've had millions of people watch Night in the Woods. I've sold millions of copies. And it's sort of the same thing with the shows. The shows are just one more avenue, other than like outside of traditional press, streams, getting yourself out there on Twitter, running your Facebook page, your website. It's just like another avenue of like, I need to hit these eyeballs this many times.
I would say that's especially, the streamers comment is especially true for like story-driven games, because they get to watch the story and then they're like, well, I already know what happens, so.
Yeah. There's like these weird mid-tier that move copies, but even the copies they move are, you know, if they hit 1% of their audience or whatever, that's as, like, as high as it goes. Most people are like 0.1% or less. No, I've got like actual bigger companies than me numbers to back that kind of crap.
Wow.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, so kind of
it's a disconnect. It's a disconnect because what they think they're moving and what is actually happening are totally different.
Yeah, kind of the way that we look at shows is kind of two things. A, like, you go to shows to make connections, like that's a big one, and then two, it's like about that long-term like brand awareness.
Did you say A and two?
Yes, I like to mix them up. But yeah, so now, I mean, like the first couple of conventions we went to, like nobody knew the studio, nobody knew the game and stuff like that, and we've kind of got like a distinct logo. It's like a fish kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. And
so like now when we go to this, like the shows, like people see the fish and like they like, oh, like, hey, we've seen the fish, and they kind of stop by and stuff. So it's, yeah, like if you go to one show, like you probably won't notice anything. It's, you gotta have that be a long-term plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of our goals actually as a studio is, I like it when people come and visit, but I get really excited when they come back either at a different show or later on in the weekend with all of their besties.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want to make an impression, like personally or the games or something that they need to come back. Like I've had entire conversations about like genre movies from Korea. That has nothing to do with my games in my booth. But then they come back at multiple shows. I had a kid actually, and I was so disappointed he didn't come to the PSX this year, who came to the first 3 PSXs. He was like a university student in Vegas, I think, Southern California. And I had seen him as a freshman, sophomore, and junior. And he just came back every single year to my booth, and we would talk about school. Don't even know his name, and very sad that he didn't show up this year. No idea who this kid is. But like that thing where it's like I only see con people at a con and they've brought all their friends back to my booth. That's just like, that's word of mouth. People will tell everyone they know about things they hate. It's really hard to get them to tell you about things they love. And if their only connection is they think I'm nice, or they like Felix, or they think Dicey's awesome, or they really like, you know, May, or what, I don't care what it is, as long as they bring their people back to my booth. Because I have really pretty things that I know they'll like. That sounds so dumb when I say that out loud. That's all it is.
You can feel free to ignore this question too, because I'm insane. But did you think about the TV size specifically when you were like, it's different for Mage Quit when you're running different, multiple games. Like Civilization is obviously different than one giant, like 10-player game. So it's like do you go for just like the biggest TV you can like afford for that, or do you go?
Oh, that's what I did.
Yeah. That's like, you're like, oh, do I get like a bunch of 40-inch TVs? Do I get 32-inch TVs? How do you decide that?
I get the ones that fit on those shelves. Which, this sounds super dumb. I mean, and it's like, if I bump up a size, it's an extra $200 per TV, and when you're buying a bunch of TVs, it matters. I get the nicest TV I can get, and if I can find it on a single base, that means I can put it on anything. Half the TVs now come with those super, super wide bases, which means I'll never be able to put them on a bar table. Like, I'm very limited on the type of furniture I can put it on. So I think it's Sony has like a single base center TV at like 32 inches, and it's a smart TV. It's a beautiful screen, and sometimes they're running them $60 off. And as soon as they do, and if I'm in the market of buying them, I buy all of them. And if I need to, I get a friend to go pick them up and hold on to them in a garage for me until whatever show it is I'm going to. I'm going to be cobbling together a bunch of TVs for East. So I've got like 4 rando TVs sitting at like Scott's house in Pittsburgh, which I'm picking up. I've got like 2 in my basement. This is just from past shows. You just get equipment and it ends up at random people's houses. So I'm gonna have like sort of like all of the unmatching stuff for PAX East. So I'm probably gonna have to pull them all out and measure them to figure out shelving and stuff, which is annoying because those super cheap $20 ones are like not quite wide enough for like that far wide base on the 32, which I discovered at West when I had to return all my TVs and get a different set, all 7 of them. That was fun. Yep, that was awesome. I got them out at the convention center floor, had to pack them back up. So we set it down and we're like, well, shit.
This is what I think about.
Yeah, we have to take them all back, and I had to spend an extra $600 on TVs to get the single bases. So, but yeah, I don't run anything on the big TVs, and I never have because they're impossible to fit into. I used to carry all my stuff in a Honda Fit, and it's really hard to get things. Honda Fits have a ton of space, but things can so oftentimes be too tall to fit into the back of one.
I put all of mine in a Honda Civic, which is
It's impressive.
only
I don't
slightly
know.
bigger.
I don't know how the hell
Yeah,
you do
I should
that.
show you a picture sometime.
I keep imagining like what that car looked like for that drive.
Should have a slide about that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I should have. Shoot. Pretty full. Yeah.
I'm just gonna keep asking questions.
Go for it.
This is this is mostly for Brett because I mean you drove there versus flying. So
Yeah.
do you think? I mean that's a whole ordeal in itself. But do you think that helps with like offsetting some of the costs because you don't have
Oh,
to
definitely.
get rid of things?
Yeah,
Because-
but as a time trade-off.
yeah.
Yeah, it took us. So it's like a 21-hour drive to San Antonio from here, and we did it in 2 days. Fortunately, I have a friend who lives in Missouri, so I stayed with him for the night on the way there and on the way back. So that worked out nice. So it's a very like I think I probably like shoestringed the trip as hard as I could. Plus, all the gear that we have for that booth setup is really heavy because there's like 2 wooden suitcases that I made out of like 2x10s and plywood.
Ship that.
So those are super heavy. The stadium seating is that actually turns into wagons if you flip them over. I should do a video of it sometime. It's pretty cool. But then we can wheel the whole setup in the 2 wagons and then unload it, flip them over, and then that's the stadium seating. But it's all very heavy, so shipping it is not an option really. So we just have to drive. But my car still gets like 32 miles a gallon, I think, with all that stuff in it. So yeah, it's a 10-gallon tank, but it doesn't seem like it unless you're filling it up.
That's how the Fit is.
Yeah,
The Honda Fit gets like 40
it's nuts.
when you're on the highway.
Yeah, we took a van out to Boston for one of the PAX East events, and that was like kind of the biggest thing we noticed was like the time, because you just lose additional days ahead of the show and additional days after. And again, at the end of the show, like everyone's exhausted, like they just want to be home, and like having to like spend that in a vehicle just kind of like adds to the suckage on top of that.
Yeah, and I made the mistake of not taking Monday and Tuesday off of work here, so I had to work remote on the road while my brother was driving, and I was just like, I hate myself so much. Why didn't I just take this day off? Plus, post-con depression is a thing. It's a real thing. Yeah, especially if the con goes really well. It's like a good weekend, and then you have to settle back into life. At least for me.
I'm so excited. By the time it's over, I'm like, get me on that airplane.
Okay, well, I mean,
take me home.
maybe it used to be that way for you.
No.
No, never?
It was always like,
Oh.
I just want to go home.
Sad. I love cons, obviously.
I like them. They're just fine. But like, I get to like Sunday, like I get an hour in on Sunday, and I'm like, this shit needs to get shut down now. I want to pack up this car. I want to go home. I want to eat. Yeah, I'm done. I'm talked out by partway through Sunday.
That explains why all the important people at each company like leaves.
Oh yeah. Well, they have to be back by Monday.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So I'm actually good. We were actually talking about this yesterday. I'm probably driving out for East, partly because I have equipment. I swear to God, scattered between here and Boston.
I'm just gonna pick it up.
Well,
along the way.
I have stuff in Pittsburgh. I have 4 TVs in
yeah.
Pittsburgh. So do I have Scott ship me 4 televisions, and then what, do I ship them back? Like, what do I do with this? So I think I was doing the math because that's what I do. And renting a car in Boston is terrible. Driving in Boston is terrible. If a nor'easter comes in, I might get trapped in Boston, which almost happened to me last year.
If what comes in?
A nor'easter, those horrible winter storms.
Oh.
It's in April, but I mean, it's not that far in April. Yeah, they
First
canceled
week.
all the flights after mine last year. And the car rentals are really expensive. I can't do a U-Haul in Boston. Like, everything about it's just sort of difficult, and I have nowhere to ship all my stuff to. So I'd have to do point to point, which also bloats out the budget. So like, I was doing the math, and I'm like, if I rented a minivan here in town, loaded up all of my junk here, just drove out. It's only 14 hours. This is not that far. Like, I'm used to road tripping with my children in the car, which is like stopping to pee every 32 miles because they can't all pee at the same time. So like, if I can just load up gear, like put the seats down, pick up 4 TVs in Pittsburgh, I could even stay. It's only like a 6.5 hour drive or something in Pittsburgh. So I could like drive there Tuesday. No, I'd have to drive there Monday night. Like, it's just not that bad, and it's over spring break, which that part sucks. So like, I don't know, or I could just muscle through 14 hours. I just don't care if I have somebody to drive with. And I mean, hell, I'd even do overnight. Like, I just don't care. And then set everything up on Wednesday. It goes Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because they hate us. They made it 4 days. And then I could actually drive out Sunday night and get myself out of Boston and get myself west of Boston like that night as far as possible. Just stay in a... I am. By the end of the show, I'm like, give me some tacos on the road and I'm out of there.
Just out of curiosity, how often do you book your events? I mean, do you do weekend to weekend sometimes, or are you pretty much every month?
I don't recommend it.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it.
I had a show, weekend off, show on time.
Yeah, no.
And the last one was in Nebraska.
I only do the big ones. I don't do any of the small shows. I will send my games to small shows. That's why I have the demos. Auto restarting demos are amazing. You just send them to game rooms, and they will just be on there. And it's like a special, like, so if that build gets lost somewhere in the public, it doesn't matter because they can't farm it and actually like get your whole game, whatever. Just block off a separate demo, ship it out, like Windows, and then it can be everywhere, and you don't have to, because that's just not feasible in the long term. Like, I can barely do the schedule I'm on now, which is like, I'm at PAX South in February, or in January. I was just in Winnipeg speaking at something last week. I have to be at DICE in 2 weeks, and those are just speaking things, which happens. Eventually, you have games. Eventually, you now have to speak at game things. I have GDC and Train Jam in March. I've got PAX East in April, and then I don't have to go anywhere for a whole month. It's gonna be beautiful. And then I'm probably gonna be stuck at E3. You guys are like, you're gonna be stuck at E3? I'm so sorry. No. At a certain point, you're stuck at these places. I'm gonna be stuck at E3 on like crazy press thing, and then I get to have 2 beautiful months off, and then they take my Labor Day with PAX West. Sorry, I'm really bitter because PAX East is over my kids' spring break. So like, they're hitting all of my holidays where I get to like actually take my children places. And the last beach weekend, a little bitter. And then like Steam Dev Days, if it takes place, will be in October. I'm not gonna do TwitchCon again, but that's in October as well. And then I'm back to PSX if I have a PlayStation game in December. So I mean, it's practically once a month, and that's if I don't do any smaller regional speaking. Like last year I was in Minneapolis and St. Louis. So where was I in the summer? Where we did weekend trips. Oh, and Bit Bash. We did take our game to Bit Bash last year in Chicago, which is in August. So it's like, it's nonstop. Like, and that's just the big ones. And we turn down stuff all the time, and I just ship out builds for things, and yeah.
I'll stop asking questions.
When I start itemizing that, I get like stressed out. I'm like, oh my god, it's a lot of stuff. It's like my whole year right there. I'm already back at PAX South 2019. I'm already there.
Alright.
Break off for hangout.
What's that?
Break off for hangout.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We're good.
Okay.